Hey you guys, today for math we are going to be focusing on number sense and decimal multiplication. As always, you can see down here, this is the standard that you are going to be graded on, so please look at it carefully and give us your best effort so we can give you the best possible grade on that standard. I'm not going to lie to you, today what we're going to do can be a little bit confusing. This may be a video that you may have to rewatch a couple of times to fully understand what it is that you're supposed to do. My advice to you would be to rewind parts that you don't quite understand. Go back and even rewatch the video several times, but ultimately also take really good notes because you are going to be asked to do some of the things I'm showing you today on your practice worksheets. So with that being said, let's get clicking, chickens. All right, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some types of problems that you're going to have to do in the first part or the first half of your practice worksheet today. You're going to see problems that are going to look like this. You're going to have 4/10 times 6/10. What I like to do is I like to rewrite this problem and make it go vertically so it's a little bit easier for me to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my problem. 4/10 times 6/10. And now I'm just going to multiply. 6 times 4 is 24. Put my 4, carry my 2. 6 times 0 is 0, but don't forget my 2. So it'll be 24. That number's done. I add a 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. And now I go ahead and I just add. 4 plus 0 is 4. 2 plus 0 is 2. And my 0. So my answer so far is 0, 2, 4. But I'm not done yet because I have decimals that I have to work with. I have to put my decimal point somewhere. All I'm going to do to figure this out is I'm going to count I'm going to count my decimal places for both my bottom number and my top number. I'm going to start from the far right hand side and I'm going to count. It's one spot. So that's 1. And then I do the same thing at the top. That's 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to come to my answer. Starting from my far right hand side, I'm going to count 2 places. 1, 2. And I'm going to put my decimal point there. So my final answer is 0.24. If you put 0.24, that is also fine. But 24 hundredths is correct. And that's all there is to it. Alright guys, wonder if you're working on a problem and you have one that's like this, where they give you only a part of the answer. I know that they're only giving me a part of the answer because if I look at my problem, I have a part here because this is a decimal, so that's a portion of a whole number, and I have a portion of a whole number here. So since I have portions here, my answer is not going to be a whole number. That's not right. So what do? Yeah, I just go ahead and I solve the problem. I multiply it just like I would to figure out the rest of the problem. So let's do that. I'm going to take 3 and 6/10 times 4 and 1/10. And now I'm going to multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. I add my 0. 4 times 6 is 24. Carry my 2. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then 4, and then 1. So I have 1, 4, and let's add in the rest of our answer. 7, 6. Now, am I done? No, I am not done. I still have to place my decimal point, which is the purpose behind this whole thing. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to start from my far right hand side. I'm going to start with my bottom number. Far right hand side is right here. And I'm going to count how many places. It's 1 place. And then I do the same thing at the top. How many? 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to start from my far right hand side and move 2 places. So my decimal point is going to go in between the 4 and the 7. My final answer is 14 and 76 hundredths. Okay guys, so what we're going to do now is we are going to do problems that you're going to see in the second part of your activity page. And this is where it can get a little bit more complicated. So take some good notes and don't be afraid to go back and rewatch this portion of the video. So let's look at our problem. We have 1 and 8 tenths times 0 and 3 tenths. The first thing I have to do for these problems is I have to solve the problem. So let's go ahead and solve it. 1 and 8 tenths times 0 and 3 tenths. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Add my 0. 0 times 8, 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 4, 5, and 0. I, again, count my decimal places. There's 1 here, 1 here. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to move it 2 places. 1, 2. So my answer is going to be 54 hundredths. Now I have to go ahead and explain why, okay, or how I figured out doing this. And doing it is actually a very simple thing to do. I'm going to compare each of my factors, my numbers, to the number 1. Watch. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compare 3 tenths, so let me write it down here, 0 and 3 tenths. I'm going to compare that to the number 1. Okay. I know that 3 tenths is less than 1. How do I know that? Because I'm looking at my number. It's a decimal. It's a part of a whole number. Only 3 out of the 10 is being used, right? It's a part. 3 out of the 10. The 3 is being used. The 3 is the part. So I know that 3 is less than 1. Okay? Based on that thinking alone, okay, I know that my answer here has to be less than 1, or has to be less than my factor here. Think about it. If I was going to multiply 1 and 8 tenths times 1, well, that's going to equal 1 and 8 tenths, right? I know anything multiplied by 1 is going to be itself. And I already know from up here that when I multiplied 1 and 8 tenths times 0 and 3 tenths, it was 54 hundredths. 54 hundredths is less than 1 and 8 tenths because 54 hundredths is about half of a whole. Do you see that? It's kind of hard to really, I know it's kind of hard to see and to visualize, but it's about numbers. If I drew a number line down here at the bottom, and at the end is 100, in the middle is 50, that's half. At the very end is 0, that's nothing. And then I can also put in a quarter, and I can put in 3/4. Do you see how this is like money? 0 means that you're broke, you got nothing. 25 or a quarter, 1/4 is 25 cents. Half is 50 cents, half a dollar. 75 cents is 3/4, 3 over 4. And then a whole is 1 whole dollar. That's why we always talk to you about, decimals and fractions being like money. So if I use this number line, I look at my answer here, I know that 54 hundredths on my number line is pretty close to half. right? So it's about half of a whole. If I look at my answer here, 1 8/10, well, I know it's past here. It's like 1 whole plus a whole nother part of a portion. It would probably be here, be 1 whole, and then the other part would be like 8/10 right there. So I know when I'm comparing my numbers to 1 that 54 hundredths is less than 1, so therefore my answer was going to be less than my factor. I know your mind is getting ready to explode, so let's go through one more together. So I'm looking at my problem, 0 3/10 times 0 9/10. How can I be sure that my answer is correct by just doing some estimating? That my answer, how do I know my answer is going to be 27 hundredths or less than 1 whole? Well, it's actually very simple to do. I'm going to, again, compare to 1. And what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to compare each factor to 1. I'm going to look at 0 and 3/10, and I'm going to compare it to 1. Is 3/10 less than 1? Yes, it is. What about 0 and 9/10? How does that compare to 1? Is that less than 1? 9/10? Absolutely, is less than 1. Here's a little trick question for you. What if I had 10/10? Would that be less than 1? Of course not. Because think of it like pizza. If you had a whole pie and there were 10 pieces in there, and you had 10 people at a party and they all came up and took one piece of pizza, how many pieces of pizza would you have left? None. So 10 out of 10 would make up a whole. But let's go back to this case. I have 0 and 3/10. I compare that to 1. I know that 3/10 is less than 1. I know 9/10 is less than 1 also. So therefore, since 3/10 is less than 1 and 9/10 is less than 1, then my answer must be less than 1. That's all there is to it. When you're all done, well, actually, what you should be doing now is you're going to go to Schoology and you're going to open up the math course. You're going to go to the Unit 6 folder, Multiplying Decimals, and then you're going to open up the folder 6 and 3/10 called Number Sense, Decimal Multiplication. Go to the second item, Practice Number Sense Decimal Multiplication, and you're going to open that in Notability and you're going to begin working on it. When you are done and you have submitted your work, you may then go on to IXL Skill G3. Good luck, you guys.